Instead of teaching your children the same white mental enslaving lies that were naively taught to you by your parents, teach them black mental liberating truth instead. Many of our people are so mentally enslaved by the white society that they don't even have a mental reference of what mental liberating truth actually is. Therefore, those who know must teach. African proverb. The following is black mental liberating truth. Since first making contact with we Africans, the Caucasians have always engaged in deceitful practices that manipulates Africans to think and behave in ways that serve their white society. Those tactics worked not because Caucasians are more intelligent than we Africans, but instead because we had never experienced such profound level of deceit and therefore had no mental references for it. The white society has never stopped engaging in deceitful practices of manipulating Africans to think and behave in ways that serve their white society. The unethical practice is still ongoing. The white society has exploited their monopoly over information that we receive to deploy a perception management system that shapes our minds and our beliefs in ways that serve their white society. Perception management is a propaganda technique that involves altering the perception of a targeted population to suit the objective of the dominant culture. It is an essential part of modern information warfare. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. The hidden reality is that in the United States, most violent crimes are in fact committed by white men. The largest recipient of welfare and affirmative action are white women. Black on black love does strongly exist because 90% of black marriages are black racially exclusive. Black fathers spend more time with their kids than white fathers. And most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either invented by black people or were directly inspired by early inventions by black people. These facts are not consistent with the perceptions and beliefs held by most people. This is because perception is not reality. Perception is the distortion of reality. Truth is reality. But illusion persists because we have been conditioned to only know lies. White social scientists determined a long time ago that by inundating black people with fraudulent negative narratives about our racial group, while simultaneously inundating us with favorable false narratives about Caucasians, they could instill a value system into our collective minds that makes us think and behave in ways that serve the white society by making us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. They therefore systematically feed false narrative into the society that manipulates us to believe the fraudulent worst about ourselves. Through their fraudulent propaganda campaigns, they manipulated millions of black women to believe that black men are running in droves to marry white women. That's merely an illusion designed to demoralize black women and to create resentment within them towards black men. The commonly held perception that most black men are leaving black women in preference for white women is totally false. In fact, the truth is the direct opposite. The latest U.S. Census Bureau released a report that studied the history of marriage in the United States. It found that 86.5% of black husbands in America are married to black women. Only 7% are married to white women. Although the media misleads us to believe the opposite, however, the truth is that most black men prefer black women. This is a direct contradiction of the media-created falsehood that most black men are abandoning our black women in pursuit of white women. Okay, some of you will naturally make the argument that most black men, upon becoming wealthy, becoming celebrities, that we seek out white women then. This is also not true. 78% of wealthy African-American men are married to black women. You can prove this yourself. Write down any list of 30 random black celebrities, athletes, actors, rappers, and then conduct a Google search for their wives. The search result will always reveal that more than 78% are married to black women. The U.S. Census Bureau reports also reveal that black women were the least likely to marry non-black, with an astounding 94% of black women in America that are married to black men. Only 4% are married to white men. This means that 90% of African Americans' marriages are exclusively black. Most black people prefer black spouses. In reality, it's Asian women who have the highest rate of intermarrying, which is at 28%. There's also their propaganda campaign that manipulates black women to believe that black men are the worst fathers. However, the truth is the exact opposite. The CDC found that 67% of black dads who don't live with their kids see them on a regular basis, compared to only 59% of white dads and 32% of Hispanic dads. And there's also compelling evidence that that number of black dads living apart from their kids stems from structural systems of inequality and poverty, not the unfounding assumption that African American men somehow place less value on parenting. The study also found that black dads are even more likely to think it's important to financially provide for their children. These many facts are the completely opposite of what the common perceptions held by many about African American men. These many contradictions are too great, and the practice of negatively and inequitably depicting black people is too widespread to be unintentional. It's not. It's by deliberate design. There's a secret war being covertly waged against black people by white oppressive forces. Like in every other war that they've waged in the past, they're deploying psychological warfare against black people. As a result of this perception management system, your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. Here's the hidden reality is in the U.S., the largest recipient of welfare, largest benefactor of affirmative actions, the group responsible for most violent crimes are in fact Caucasian. Most cops are killed each year by white men, by Caucasians. Caucasians are also more likely than any other racial group to kill a family member for financial gain. They are more likely than any other group to kill a parent. And in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustice of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized this world were in fact either invented by black people or were inspired by earlier inventions by black people. These are the truth. Black people have in fact enriched nearly every aspect of the white society through our many inventions. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones, no emails, no GPS, no motorized vehicles, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers, no air conditioning, no modern PC, no 3D movies, no central heating, no refrigerators, no washing machines, no dryers, no refrigerated trucks, no blood banks, no color PC monitor, no fiber optics, no nanotechnology, nor do we have the accurate weather forecasting system. There'd be no lawnmowers, no pencil sharpeners, etc., etc. But rather than thanking us, white oppressive forces have instead created media propaganda denigrating, vilifying, and marginalizing us to conceal these noted facts about us. Most people are therefore functioning based upon the perception that most inventions that revolutionized the world were invented by Caucasians and that black people are the leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history. This is, however, an elaborate white deception created by white propagandists that systematically feeds false narrative into our society. The society at large then functions based upon those false narratives rather than our true reality. Our true narratives are being intentionally suppressed by the white society because they refute the empowering myth of white racial superiority that they have over us. They're the opposite of their racist internalized dialogue about us. And they conflict with their narcissistic need to feel that they're better than us. And keeping our perceptions of ourselves negative is how they maintain their social dominance over us. Again, your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. The distortion of reality is possible because public perception of reality is not shaped based upon fact nor reality. It's actually shaped by the narratives that are repetitively fed into a society. Therefore, the basic tool required to distort the interpretation of reality is to merely repeatedly feed distorted narratives into a society. The public at large will then function based upon those false narratives rather than the true reality. This is precisely what white propagandist designers have done. They systematically feed false narrative into our society, and in doing so, they literally whitewash the interpretation of reality. They keep us believing high of themselves and believing less of ourselves. It's social sciences. This instills a value system into our minds that makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. Here's why they created this perception management system that keeps us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves. Okay. The disclosure will also reveal a few more black racially affirming facts that they conceal from us. After slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, by the year 1940, African Americans had filed 726 invention patents to the U.S. Patent Office. Those numbers more than doubled those submitted by whites during the same time frame. African Americans had also built many of our own self-efficient cities across the country. Those black-built cities often exceeded their neighboring white cities. This resulted in many white mobs rioting and destroying those black townships. Moreover, in an effort to resuscitate our culture and our collective self-esteem, black-owned and operated publishing companies were abundant. Many African American writers, through their publication of scholarly work, wrote amazing bodies of nonfiction, aimed at educating black people. Many African Americans could be found reading literature by W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Langston Hughes, J.A. Rogers, and a host of other black writers. These literary pieces were works of resistance that were incorporated into our curriculum of our segregated black schools. They were aimed at transforming black consciousnness. This was part of the Black Cultural Revolution, and it made a significant difference. Black illiteracy, which was 30% in 1919, had dropped to less than 7% by 1955. Black illiteracy had also disappeared in the North, and in some areas in the North, black illiteracy was less than white illiteracy. Such was the case in New York. In 1950, black colleges had 71,000 students. Nearly all were in the South. 553 black people had a doctorate degree. The advancement made by African Americans following slavery was extraordinary. Witnessing the immense threat that black ingenuity represent against the preservation of white dominance, white social scientists determined that by negatively distorting everything that black people believes about ourselves collectively, they could condition us to perceive ourselves through a false, marginalized identity that aids them in maintaining their social dominance over black people. Whenever the oppressors are faced with a physical barrier that they can't overcome, they always create a psychological remedy. They saw our growth as the threat of their white dominance. Now, while all the white governments now publicly professes equality for all of their citizens, the hidden reality is they are unrelentingly committed to the preservation of their nation's white dominance. This unrelenting commitment necessitates that they deploy unethical systems against us as a means of maintaining their white social dominance. This is our hidden reality that we must understand. They deploy psychological warfare because they control all of our narratives. They negatively distort them in order to condition us to perceive ourselves in ways that benefits themselves. White social scientists describe the nefarious practice as merely instilling a value system into subconscious minds of black people that makes us adhere to the authority and the existing infrastructure of the dominant society. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over a generation, the truth will seem preposterous and the speaker a raving lunatic. I speak to you the truth. Now, don't be fooled. If the Caucasians were truly superior, they wouldn't have to distort so many facts to convey it. Nobody had to work so hard behind the scenes to subjugate those who they claim are inferior. The truth is the exact opposite from what they've manipulated millions to believe. According to social science, perception is immense. Perception is greater than reality. So they maintain their social dominance by distorting facts to create the perception of white superiority over black people. And that perception gives them their power over black people. I always end saying the same, but I have to keep saying it. We must elevate our minds above a biblical fairy tale and a silly slave syndrome myth. And we must develop a realistic, we must gain a true, clear, and concise understanding of our condition and plight. Okay? Because if our understandings remain flawed, then all liberating remedies from those will also be flawed. Case in point. Black people believe that our plight is connected to a Bible. So what do? We just keep praying and reading our Bible. A flawed remedy because our belief of our plight is flawed. When black people believe that our condition is connected to the Willie Lynch myth, they keep trying to study how do we overcome the Willie Lynch chip. A flawed remedy, a result of a false belief. The truth is that the white society deploys social sciences against us for maintaining their dominance. We must recognize, learn it, and then develop our own counter strategies to overcome it. This is the truth of our plight and condition. Each one teach one. Elevate our minds. When you believing in the Bible, believing in Lynch, you are like someone with a comic book. With a comic book trying to liberate yourself. That's how our minds have been plummeted, distorted. We're literally using fiction to liberate ourselves from our real life oppression. That's idiotic. Learn the truth and function based upon the truth. One love and peace, my brothers and sisters.